Yeah. So in the last class, we started talking about what is meant by layout of triangulation. So in which we said layout is nothing but it's the arrangement of various triangles in that proper network, in the triangulation network. So how we are arranging the various triangles in that proper network is what we call it as your layout of triangulation. That is what we have talked about. And we said we are going to be coming across with three different types of layouts, which we'll be now quickly going through. One of that is simple triangles. So you would see simple triangles connected one with the other in the form of a series. So that is what we call it as simple triangles in a chain form. And other is braced quadrilaterals. So we are going to have quadrilaterals which are braced. Braced in the sense you'll have diagonals existing in that particular quadrilaterals in the form of a chain arrangement. One quadrilateral, next quadrilateral, next quadrilateral, and so on. So each quadrilateral, what we are looking at is braced. Okay, so that is what we call it as braced quadrilateral in a chain form. And the other is center triangle and polygons, which we have already said in the last class. This is otherwise also called as centered figure. Okay, so at the center of a polygon, at the center of a triangle, you are going to have another triangular station. Okay, so I repeat, at the center of a polygon could be of any polygon. It could be a pentagon, hexagon, octagon, septagon, or maybe a quadrilateral, whatever is that polygon that you are talking about. At the center of that polygon, if you are going to have another triangular station, triangulation station, with respect to which all the sides of the polygons are connected, then such kind of layout is what we call it as centered triangles and polygons. So let's quickly understand one by one each of them. So what is meant by the simple triangles in chain form? This particular simple triangular triangles arrangement in a chain form is generally preferred. I repeat, is generally preferred when control points are provided in the case of a narrow strip. Narrow strip in the sense, let's say for example, I have a river flowing like this. And if I need to make the triangulation network for this particular river flowing region, then I can say this is one triangular station, this is another triangulation station, this is another triangulation station. So what I am just trying to do here is I am trying to get my network of triangles. Okay, so if you look at here, this is one triangle, this is another triangle, this is another triangle. So how these triangles are connected? In the form of a chain. If you look at a chain, how is the chain existing? You have one link connected to the another link, that link is connected to the other link. So in the same way, one triangle connected to another triangle, that triangle connected to the another triangle. And this kind of arrangement of triangles in a proper sequence in a series form is what we call it as simple triangles in chain. Okay, so this type of simple triangles in chain form, such kind of layout is preferred whenever you have a narrow strip, narrow region in which you are required to go for you are required to prepare your triangulation. Okay, so in such particular cases we go for this simple triangles. But the disadvantage with this particular simple triangles in the chain form is, if at all, let's say for example, I want to find out the length. Okay, I'll give some triangulation stations naming A, B, C, D, E. Let's say for example, I want to find out what is the length of the line DE, this length. Okay, DE length is what I want to find out. Now, if I want to find out the DE length, let's say AB length is what we are calling it as our base length, where the length of that AB line is accurately we have measured, and the other angles is what we have also measured with the help of your theodolite. Okay, so other angles in that particular triangulation network, everywhere, wherever you require the angles are known. So with respect to the base length, AB length, I can go on to find out what is my BC length. I can find out what is my AC length. Then I'll move on to the another triangle. So as the AC length is known for the triangle ACD, then I can go on to find out what is your AD length, and I can find out what is your CD length. So once the CD length of the triangle CDE is known, then by making use of the CD length, I can find out what is your CE length, and subsequently I can find out what is your DE length. Okay, so now why did I say there is a disadvantage with this particular technique is, if I want to find out the length of the member DE, I have only one possibility or one particular route by which I can travel, and I can find out the length of that member DE. One route in the sense, without knowing the lengths corresponding to the members of the triangle ABC, I cannot go to the members of the triangle ACD. Without knowing the lengths of the members of the triangle ACD, I cannot go on to move towards the triangle that is DCE. So I have only one possible route by which I can subsequently travel to your member DE, ultimately to find out your so-called length DE. So this is only one way by which I can go on to find out those unknowns. In the other techniques, I'll be talking about the other alternative routes also by which I can go on to find out the same length DE. Okay, so that's the difference what we have got with respect to that of your simple triangles when compared to that of your other techniques. Let us that we'll be trying to understand in next couple of slides. But however, this particular simple triangles in chain form, whatever we are trying to talk about, is said to be rapid and economical because of its simplicity. Why do we say rapid? Because you are continuously finding the lengths of all the members in the sequence form. Whereas when it comes to your centered figure or something like that, you have more number of angles to be computed, more number of dimensions to be computed, and so on. So that's the reason why we say it is relatively time-taking process. But however, they have their own advantage. This particular technique has got its own advantage. So it's simple, rapid, and economical. You are not going to be spending much time, much investment on finding all the unknowns to get your triangulation network, for subsequently figuring out your exact channel along which how the flow is happening through that particular river. Okay, so this layout technique does not provide any check on the accuracy of observations. What is this? Any check on the accuracy of observations means, if I want to find out the length of the member DE, I have only one possibility or one possible route by which I can find out that length DE. If I want to find out length DE without knowing the length of the member DC, I cannot find out the length of DE member. Without knowing the length of the AC member, I cannot find out the length of your CD member or DC member. So if I know one thing, then only I can find out the other. If I know that, then only I can find out the other. So there is no alternative route for me to travel and subsequently find out your length DE. So that's one of the disadvantage, as there is only one route through which your distances can be calculated. However, even in the case of this simple triangles also, you can, if you want to understand how your measurements are done mathematically and how your field observations are, if you want to check for the accuracy, you can do that. But however, only by mathematical computations, you don't have an alternative route by which you can find out your unknown that you are looking at. Okay, so you can make use of your check baselines, and as I told you, you can measure the bearings with respect to the reference north at different places to understand the accuracy of whatever you are trying to calculate in terms of mathematical computations and your field observations. The other type of layout is braced quadrilaterals. Now, if you look at here, this is one of the shape of the quadrilateral, this is another quadrilateral, this is another quadrilateral. Each quadrilateral is connected to the other in the form of a chain. And if you are looking at each particular quadrilateral, you have bracings. Bracings is nothing but the diagonal members existing for that particular quadrilateral. I repeat, so we have got diagonal members existing for each of the quadrilaterals. So such kind of quadrilateral layout formation is what we call it as braced quadrilateral in a chain form. Okay. Now, if you look at your braced quadrilateral, okay, A, B, C, D is one braced quadrilateral. Likewise, C, D, E, F is another braced quadrilateral, and E, F, G, H is another braced quadrilateral. And at the intersection of two diagonals, you don't have any triangulation station. It's just an overlap of two diagonals. That's it. Okay. So that's the difference what you should be understanding. Yeah. So consists of figures containing 4 corner stations. When you are looking at this braced quadrilateral, you have got 4 corner stations for each braced quadrilateral. Let's say A, B, C, D. So 4 corner stations and observed diagonals. So you are also going to be measuring with respect to each of the triangulation station position. So it's not just that you are measuring the angles, this angle as well as this angle. So angles with respect to the diagonal positions are also measured with the help of your theodolite. Then only we are going ahead in computing your other lengths of your members. Okay. Now here the advantage with this particular braced quadrilateral technique is even this braced quadrilaterals in chain form layout is also preferred in the case of relatively narrow areas only. Okay. But the advantage with this particular technique over your earlier one, that's your series of triangles in the chain form. Okay, so what is the advantage with the braced quadrilateral? Now let's look at, if I want to find out what is the length of this member EF. Length of member EF is what I want to find out. Now if I want to find out the length of the member EF, how can I find out the length of the member EF? Okay, all the internal angles, wherever you wanted, every internal angle is known to us. All these internal angles are known to us. Okay. Now, let's say AB length is known, which I am calling it as the base length. So length of the member AB is known to me accurately, and all the other internal angles between different members in that braced quadrilateral is known to me. Then once the AB length is known, then by looking at the triangle ABC, I repeat, by looking at the triangle ABC, I can go on to find out the length of the member AC. Okay, instead of talking about your length of the member EF, let's say I want to find out the length of the member CD. EF length is okay, relatively far. Let me quickly look at your length of the member CD. If I want to find out the length of the member CD, I have 2 ways by which I can find out the length of the member CD. What is that 2 ways? First, I look at your triangle ABC. In the triangle ABC, I'll go on to find out what is the length of the member AC. And once I know the length of the member AC, then I can look at your triangle ACD. I'll repeat. I can look at your triangle ACD. As the length of this AC member is known, then I can go on to calculate what is your length of the CD member. This is one way. What is the other way? The other way is I look at my triangle ABD. A, B, D. Length of the member AB is known. As the length of the member AB is known, I can go on to find out the length of the member BD. If the length of the member BD is known, then I can now look at your triangle BCD. As the length of the member BD is known in the triangle BCD, then I can go on to find out the length of the member CD. So what has happened? I have got 2 different ways by which I am able to travel and subsequently find out the same unknown which I am looking at. CD length if I am trying to find out. So I have got 2 possible ways by which I can move and accordingly calculate your length of the member CD. That's the advantage what we have got with your braced quadrilateral system, or either your centered figure system. That's your centered figure layout, or with your braced quadrilateral layout. You have got 2 or more number of possible ways by which you can go on to calculate your so-called unknown that you are looking at. Okay, so that's going to be the advantage of what we have with respect to your 2 other layouts when compared to that of your series of triangles which are represented. So coming to your centered figure, which is otherwise also called as centered triangles and polygons. So at the center of a triangle, you have another, let's look at your triangle ABC. At the center of the triangle, we have got another triangulation station which is represented. So this is what is called as, at the center of the figure, you have another triangulation station. So that with respect to the triangulation station also, we are going to be connecting with the other triangulation stations like triangulation station A, triangulation station B, triangulation station C. Okay. So it means with instrumentation, with instrument at position D, we are going to be finding out this angle. We are going to be finding out this angle. Yeah, this angle, I'll be finding out even this angle. Apart from these angles, what are already measured with respect to those respective triangulation stations A, B, C, even with the instrument at station D, you are also able to find out the other angles with respect to triangle ADB, ADC, and CDB. Okay, relatively more accurate way of computation is what you can do. That is what we call it as your centered triangles and polygons. If you can look at here quickly, maybe polygon going from G, H, J, K, L. Okay, G, H, J, K, L polygon if you are looking at. So at the center of that polygon also you have another triangulation station, where that triangulation station is what we represented as station M. With respect to that triangulation station, you are trying to connect to all the other triangulation stations existing in that polygon. So, and if I place the theodolite at station M position, I can find out this angle, 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 I can find out this angle. So, relatively, you are trying to have more angular measurements made, and the way how you can go on to calculate your unknowns in that particular layout representation. Unknowns in the sense, the sides of different triangulation network that you have represented. Okay, so you can go on to find out with reference to some of the base length which you have accurately measured in your field. Knowing all the internal angles between different members, different survey lines, what you have represented in your triangulation network. This particular centered figure technique is very widely used in the case of vast areas in the sense where the area of that particular region in which your triangulation network, what you are building up, is relatively large in both the directions, not just only in one direction the area is getting extended, like the river channel. So we have got the area getting extended in both the directions relatively. Okay, so in such case, this particular technique of centered figure is going to be very effective in getting your triangulation network and subsequently preparing the map for that particular wide region which is spread out, and identifying the different salient features of that particular topography or of that particular area, and then mapping all that information onto your graphical representation. What are the different factors? Yeah, what are the different factors that are to be considered in selecting a figure? So when we say selecting a figure in the sense whether it should be a braced quadrilateral or whether it should be a simple triangle or whether it should be a centered figure. So how should I make a decision in selecting such figures? Okay, so we have certain steps or certain things that we should keep in our mind depending on how the triangulation network I have to represent, by indicating by triangles or by indicating by braced quadrilaterals or by indicating by your centered polygons or centered triangles or combination of those. So it totally depends on your accuracy of the work what you are looking at, and it totally depends on the area over which that particular stretch is spread over. The area in which you are carrying out your survey, depending on that you are going to be taking a decision. Okay, so certain things what you should have in your mind is you should be having a minimum of 2 routes by which you can go ahead in finding out the unknowns existing in that particular triangulation network. Okay, if I want to find out the length of any particular side in the triangulation network, at least I should have 2 possible routes by which I can go on to calculate the same length, and I can check for the accuracy of my work that I have carried out, or the accuracy of my mathematical computation that I have carried out in finding out the lengths of those unknown sides in that triangulation network. And that particular routes, whatever you are going to be representing, are the triangles or braced quadrilaterals, whatever you are going to be representing, they should be well-conditioned routes. What is this well-conditioned routes? I'll just try to talk about in the next couple of slides in detail. Next, that so-called type of figure what you are going to be choosing are a combination of figures that you are going to be choosing to represent your complete triangulation network should cover the entire area. So that's how you should be choosing your type of figure. And subsequently, to give you more insight into what is called as a well-conditioned triangle. So these are some of those criterions that we need to be satisfying to say that particular network what I am representing, or that type of figure which I am representing, is a well-conditioned root. Okay. So what does it mean? So simple triangles, what you are going to be representing in your network, in the triangulation network, if you are coming across with simple triangle, those simple triangles, let it be preferably equilateral triangles. And coming to braced quadrilateral, let those braced quadrilaterals be preferably square shaped. And it's not compulsory that it has to be like that, but preferably if you have the shapes like that, it would make your life easy in your calculations, and the amount of errors that you encounter in the calculation will be relatively less. That's the reason we say, if you are trying to choose the triangles in the representation of your triangulation network, then choose the triangles in a way that you are going to have more or less equilateral triangles existing. If it is braced quadrilaterals, prefer to have braced quadrilaterals of square shape. It would be easy for your calculations. And if you are going for centered polygons, prefer it to be a regular polygon in the sense a proper pentagon shape, or hectagon shape, octagon shape, or a septagon shape, some regular shape with sides of common dimension. So it would make your life relatively easy, and the computations are going to be easy and fast. And some other conditions which are to be also taken care in order to say that root what I am following in computing the unknown parameters is a well-conditioned root. No angle of the figure opposite to an known side should be small. Let's say, for example, this is my triangle what I am looking at, A, B, C triangle. Let's say the angle at point station B is known. So if the angle at station B is known, I can make use of that angle to find out the unknown length, let's say AC. AC is an unknown length. So that unknown length AC is what I wanted to find out by making use of the opposite angle. So in the process of finding out the length of the member AC, the so-called opposite angle which is existing at station B should not be very small. If it is very small, that angle at station B, if it is very small, then if there is an error in the calculation, that error computation is relatively more. If that angle is relatively big angle, then the amount of error what you get accumulated in the computation is less. So that's the reason why the angle what is getting formed, the angle what you have got in that particular figure opposite to an unknown side, that angle should not be very small. So relatively it should be in the range of something we say 30 degrees to 120 degrees, depending on the type of the case what you are looking at. If it is a simple triangle, if it is a braced quadrilateral, or if it is a centered polygon, and so on, there are some certain conditions what are to be satisfied in order to compute your unknown values relatively with a better accuracy. Okay. The angles of the simple triangle should not be less than 45 degrees. In the case of the quadrilaterals, no angle should be less than 30 degrees. In the case of the centered polygon, we say that no angles should be less than 40 degrees. And the sides of the figure, it could be a triangle, it could be a braced quadrilateral, or it could be a centered polygon. The sides of the figures should be of comparable length. Should be of comparable length means, let's say if I am looking at a simple triangle, two sides of the triangle should not be very big, and one side of the triangle should not be very small. Okay. So if you are trying to look at that very small length, if you are trying to calculate that very small length, what would happen is, in the subsequent continuous calculations, if this smaller length is used for calculating something else, if there is a small error in this particular smaller length what you have estimated, that small error will get accumulated to a very big error when this small length is used for computing the unknown bigger lengths. Okay. So that's the reason why we say the angles opposite to a unknown length should not be very small, and the lengths of the sides of your respective figures should not be so small when compared to that of the other dimension. So the sides of those figures, one dimension should be comparable to the other dimension. That's what it means. So typically, what are those different criterions that we need to be satisfying in order to say that particular triangle or that root is a well-conditioned triangle or a well-conditioned root in the triangulation network? The shape of the triangle, what you are going to be representing, in which any error in angular measurements, if at all there is an error in the angular measurements when you are trying to measure the angular measurements with the help of the theodolite, if at all there is any error, that error what you had in the calculation of the angle should have a least impact on your calculations. It should have a minimum impact in the sense minimum effect on the determination of the unknown lengths of that particular sides of the figure. Okay, so the error what you had when you are measuring the angles, that error should not get maximized in the process of calculating the lengths of the unknown sides of that particular figure. Okay, so that is one important criteria what you should have in your mind. Then only whenever that error is not getting maximized, then such kind of triangle, such kind of figure is what is called as a well-conditioned figure, or the root what you are following is a well-conditioned root. The arrangement of triangles in the layout and the magnitude of the angles in individual triangles affect the accuracy of a triangulation system. Obvious that the way how you are arranging your triangles, the amount of angle that you had in each of the individual triangle, obviously that affects the accuracy of your triangulation system. So that's the reason why we said angle between two lines should not be so small, and the lengths of the sides of that figure should not be they should be comparable to each other. One should not be so small when compared to the others, and so on. So hence, when you are looking at a well-conditioned triangle, we say the best shape of a well-conditioned triangle is an isosceles triangle whose base angles, let's say for example, this is my isosceles triangle. These two lengths are equal, and the angle here and here, if at all, if it is 56 degrees, 14 minutes each, we say that particular triangle shape is a best shape, and that particular triangle is called as a well-conditioned triangle. And if at all you are using that well-conditioned triangle in representing your triangulation network, the error what is getting accumulated in your calculations is relatively a very minimal error, and that minimal error will not affect your calculations when you compare the original field dimension with respect to your computed dimension. Okay, so but however, it may not be always possible to have what is called as an isosceles triangle with that angle what you are looking at the base of that isosceles triangle. But however, we say for practical considerations, even your equilateral triangle, earlier also I said, I didn't talk about isosceles triangle, but however, even your equilateral triangle may be also treated as a well-conditioned triangle. But however, when you are looking at that equilateral triangle also, or any triangle to be called as your well-conditioned triangle, the angle what is getting formed between two sides in that triangle. Okay, so the triangles whose angles are less than 30 degrees or more than 120 degrees should be avoided in the chain of triangles. Okay, if it is less than 30 degrees, the angle is very small in between two lines. If it is more than 120 degrees, if one angle itself is more than 120 degrees, obviously the other angles what you are going to be computing, there would be a possibility at least with one angle which is going to be relatively very lesser angle. So that's the reason we say it is suggested to avoid in the representation of your triangulation network, it is suggested to avoid angles of less than 30 degrees or angles of more than 120 degrees when you are going to construct your triangulation network. Okay. Next, let us talk about the classification of your triangulation and the accuracy. which triangulation network has got more accuracy, which triangulation network has got less accuracy, and so on. So in which type of conditions we should go for which triangulation network, and so on. So your triangulations, whatever we are talking about, are classified into three types. One is primary triangulation, or otherwise also called as first order triangulation. Second one is secondary triangulation or second order triangulation, and the third one is tertiary triangulation or third order triangulation. So what is each of that? In which particular case we go for what? Let us try to understand that. Primary triangulation. So what does this primary triangulation means? So it's nothing but a triangulation system or a triangulation network what we are talking about, which is formed with very high accuracy. I repeat, this particular triangulation network what you are going to be building is going to be built, or that triangulation network is going to be represented with very high accuracy. So such kind of triangulation network is what is called as primary triangulation or first order triangulation. So high grade of triangulation system, high accuracy you have got with this particular primary triangulation network when you are going to be representing. And this particular type of triangulation network is more commonly adopted in case if the area what you are trying to talk about in which your triangulation network is to be represented. Okay, so if the area is relatively very large, in such particular case, we go on to adopt this primary triangulation network. Okay, so let's say in the cases to determine the shape and size of the Earth surface, or for providing precise plane metric control points for subsidiary triangulations. For subsidiary means for intermediate triangulation networks, if I want to build in such particular case, we are going to first represent a triangulation frame network with the triangulation stations relatively very far away. I repeat, in this primary triangulation network, the triangulation stations are chosen at a very far away distance. And we go on to represent your that particular triangulation network by choosing the triangulation stations relatively very far away. And in between those primary triangulation stations, I can go on to build another triangulation network, which we call it as secondary triangulation network. And in between those secondary triangulation network, I am going to be building up another triangulation network, which is called as your tertiary triangulation network. So what happens is when you are talking about your primary triangulation network, the distance at which your triangulation stations are chosen are generally somewhere in between 16 kilometers to 150 kilometers apart. So if I say one triangulation station is here, I'm going to have another triangulation station somewhere here, which is somewhere at a distance of 16 to 150 kilometers. You understand at what far away distances those triangulation stations are established. And another triangulation station somewhere here. The distance between these two triangulation stations could be varying anything between 16 to 150 kilometers. This length is somewhere in between 16 to 150 kilometers. That's how you choose your triangulation stations to represent your network. Okay, so these triangulation stations and the lengths between those triangulation stations are very accurately measured and precisely located. Okay. And with respect to this primary triangulation network or the primary triangulation stations, we go on to build the secondary triangulation network. Maybe another triangulation station here, another triangulation station here, another triangulation station here. So look at here. I am making use of your primary triangulation stations to connect different points, which I am calling it as your secondary triangulation stations. Now, why do I need to talk about these secondary triangulation stations? Because just by triangulation stations which are very far away, it may not be very feasible for us to determine the locations of various aspects. Let's say, for example, if I want to map the information related to all the pilgrim places in India, all the pilgrim places in India. It could be temples, it could be churches, it could be masjid, it could be any other. All those important pilgrim places, I want to map them. If I want to map them, I cannot just simply make use of your primary triangulation stations to locate the positions of those points. Like it could be temple in Tirumala, or it could be a golden temple, or it could be something else, I can just go, I cannot just make use of only a triangulation, primary triangulation stations to locate the positions of all those. So that's the reason why we go on to build another network by making use of your primary triangulation stations. We go on to build another network in between, which is called as your secondary triangulation network. And even similarly, in the case of secondary triangulation network also, we may not be able to figure out all the other information which I am trying to focus to small distances. So in such case, we go on to build another network in between your secondary triangulation network, which is called as your tertiary triangulation network. But what difference it makes from primary to secondary to tertiary is the amount of accuracy that is involved with respect to which the measurements are done, either your linear measurements or angular measurements, varies. In the case of primary triangulation, as I told you, with more accuracy, we locate the positions of those triangulation stations, and then we go on to measure everything to build your primary triangulation network. But when it comes to secondary, the importance slightly decreases. The accuracy decreases. And tertiary, the accuracy further decreases. Okay. Yeah. So coming to the specifications of your primary triangulation. So the length of the baselines. He said, generally the lengths of the sides of your triangulation network would be varying somewhere in between 16 kilometers to 150 kilometers. And the length of the baseline with which you are getting started would be approximately varying somewhere in between 8 kilometers to 12 kilometers. So with that baseline, you go on to compute the other lengths of the sides of that triangulation network. The average triangular error, the angle, that average error what you are going to be having is less than 1 second. With that much accuracy, we go on to locate the positions of various triangulation stations, the bearings, angles that you are going to be measuring. Okay. So after correcting for spherical corrections, the curvature of Earth, taking into that effect consideration, after correcting that, we are going to see the angle measurements, whatever you are going to be making, is accurate to that of 1 second. The error is going to be less than 1 second. And the maximum station closure in between one station to the other station, when you are trying to mark your distances and subsequently represent that closure, that maximum station closure is going to be less than 3 seconds. And the actual error of the base, let's say the base length what you are going to be measuring in the field, is going to be measured so accurately where the error in the base measurement what you are going to be doing will be 1 in 50,000. It means 50,000 meters if I am measuring, the error is going to be only 1 meter in that, the variation in that computed value, measured value to that of your computed value would vary only by 1 in every 50,000 units. To that accuracy, you are going to be representing your control network in the case of your primary triangulation. Now, when it comes to your secondary triangulation, so as I told you, the purpose of this secondary triangulation is to connect two primary triangulations. It could be two primary triangulation stations or primary triangulation network system. So to connect them, you are going to have what is called as your secondary triangulation done. And subsequently, the purpose of this secondary triangulation is to provide the control points close together than the case of your primary triangulation. So in the case of primary triangulation, we are saying that control points are chosen in a way that they are 16 to 150 kilometers apart. But however, in the case of secondary triangulation, those secondary triangulation stations are chosen relatively closer to give a better densification in that network representation. The length of the baselines would be varying somewhere between 2 to 5 kilometers. The lengths of the sides here in this case are lesser, which is 10 to 25 kilometers. The error what you are going to be getting in the angular measurements is, as I told you, like relatively lesser accuracy with which we go on to mark this secondary triangulation. So error is something less than 3 seconds. So there is an increase in error. When you come from primary to secondary, there is an increase in error. Okay. And maximum station closure earlier was only 3 seconds. Now it is 8 seconds. And actual error of the base. So the base measurement, what you are doing accurately, we earlier in the case of primary triangulation, the base measurement is done accurately to that of 1 in 50,000, but whereas here it is only 1 in 25,000. Tertiary triangulation, to provide control points between stations of primary and secondary triangulation to further close and densify your network representation. That's what it is. And further densification of horizontal control for topographical surveys of various scales. Okay, so in between primary network you have secondary network. In between the secondary network you are further minimizing that network in that region by what is called as your tertiary triangulation. And these are the certain specifications that we have got with respect to that of your tertiary triangulation network. Next, coming to that of your layout, what we should specifically look at, because this primary triangulation network, what we said is adopted in the case of the large areas, okay, for which the triangulation network is to be built. Okay, so in such case, what is the layout by which you go on to form your primary triangulation? So in what form that primary triangulation network is going to be built, or we go on to represent that primary triangulation? We have got two methods by which you go on to represent that primary triangulation layout. One is your gridiron system and the other is centered system. What does this gridiron system means? So when you are going to represent the primary network for such large area, so you are going to be representing your network in a way that, look at here, in the form of a grid. Okay, so in the form of a grid, we are going to be representing your network, and with reference to that triangulation stations, you go on to, with that gridiron pattern of the triangulation network, you go on to represent your secondary triangulation network. With respect to the secondary triangulation network, you go on to represent your primary triangulation network. So this way of representing is what is called as your gridiron system. In which particular places we prefer to go for this gridiron system means, let's say, for example, I am trying to prepare a triangulation network for a country like India. The area of our country is relatively very big. So in such particular cases, we prefer to go for what is called as your gridiron system when compared to that of your centered system. What would happen in the case of centered system? With respect to center, I go on to locate your stations in all the sides of that center. So this gridiron system is preferred, though it is a primary triangulation network. So still in that primary triangulation network, gridiron system is specifically adopted in the cases where the area of that particular country, where your area of that particular place for which you are carrying out that triangulation network, or you are building your triangulation network, if the area is relatively very large, so in such case, we go for your gridiron system. For example, primary triangulation network, if I want to prepare for country like India or maybe some other countries, so in such particular cases, we go for what is called as a gridiron system type of layout. When it comes to the case of countries like smaller countries, maybe it could be like United Kingdoms and so on. So in such particular cases, we go on for what is called as your centered system layout. So centered system in the sense, you have more densification at the center and subsequently which is spread over in all the other directions. So this primary triangulation is laid in series of chains of triangles. So series of chains of triangles, not just only in one direction, in the other direction also, but in a pattern, proper pattern. Usually run roughly along the meridians. Meridians in the sense in the north-south direction and east-west direction. If you can look at your grid pattern, so you have your pattern arrangement going in north-south or east-west. Okay, so that's how your gridiron representation is. Distance between two chains may vary from 150 kilometers to 250 kilometers. What does two chains mean? So this is, let's say, for example, one north-south chain. This is another north-south chain. Chain in the sense, the direction. Okay, so the distance between those two chains could be varying in between 150 kilometers to 250 kilometers. Similarly, east-west chain and another east-west chain, the distance between those two chains could be somewhere around 150 kilometers to 250 kilometers. So you can understand how much is that spread over space at which those particular chain representation is done. Area between the parallel and perpendicular series of primary triangulation are covered by secondary and tertiary triangulation system. So whatever the area that you have got between your triangulation system here, okay, one chain of triangulation system, another chain of triangulation system, which are parallel here, and these two triangulation systems are perpendicular. Okay, the area what is formed between this, let's say this area. So how we are going to be building the network in this particular area? By what is called as your secondary triangulation network, and subsequently in between the secondary triangulation network region, you are going to be further building the area by tertiary triangulation network. So typically adopted in the case of countries like India, Austria, Spain and France, where the area over which that particular you are trying to build your triangulation network is big. So your central triangulation system means with reference to some center, you go on to build your triangulation network spread over in all the respective directions. Okay. So such kind of triangulation network is what is called as centered system. So preferably used in the countries which are relatively small. Okay, the area wise relatively small. Next, moving on with what is called as scale error. We know what is meant by error. Okay. So what is meant by error? Error is nothing but the difference in what you have calculated to that of what is exactly existing. Okay. So what is calculated to that of what is measured. The difference in those measurements is what is called as error. Okay. So what does this word scale error means? Scale error in the sense, the so-called dimensions what you are trying to find out, the sides of your triangle, sides of your base quadrilateral, or sides of your centered polygon, the sides of all those figures, with what accuracy you are calculating, basically depends on your baseline measurement. How accurately you have measured your baseline in the field. Depending on that, the sides what you are calculating by making use of your baseline dimension and the subsequent angular dimensions. Okay, so based on your angles and based on your baseline dimension, you are going to understand what is the accuracy in your the sides of those respective figures that you are calculating. In case if the baseline itself what you have measured in the field is not very accurate, then obviously all the sides of that network what you are calculating would also be having the error. Okay, so first we should understand how accurately you have measured your baseline. So depending on the accuracy of the baseline measurement, then your accuracy in terms of the sides what you are calculating for that figures in the triangulation network would also be depending on. Okay, so how this scale error is defined as? Simply, it is nothing but error. How is it defined as? So it is defined as the difference between the measured value and the computed value. How much is that you have measured and how much is that you have calculated? The difference in those two values is what we call it as your error. So how do I understand I have got some error? So whenever you are trying to talk about any kind of network, it could be a traverse, it could be a triangulation or whatever, we said you should have some check lines. What is the purpose of those check lines? Check lines are going to be useful for us to understand the amount of error that is you are committing. Okay, so when I say check line, mathematically you calculate what should be the length of that line, and in the field also you can exactly measure what is the length between those 2 points in that field. Length of that line you can measure in the field. Mathematically you have computed by your trigonometry, and you are comparing, okay, how much is that I have calculated, how much is that I have measured. The difference in what is measured to that of what is calculated is what we are calling it as here error. Control providing frequent baseline measurements. So this errors what you are coming across with, okay, you can try to minimize them by frequent checks with the help of your check baselines at different places. Next is distance angle. Okay. What does this distance angle mean? It's nothing but an angle that involve for the calculation of an unknown side. Okay, if I am looking at a triangle here, let's say triangle ABC, if I want to find out the side AC, length of the side AC, so which angle is getting involved in the representation of your computation of the line AC? Okay, so generally in the case of sine rule, if I am looking at, so the angle what is formed between line BA and BC at station B, so that angle is what is said to be called as the distance angle. Now let me understand, what does that word distance angle mean? Distance angle is nothing but it's that angle which is involved for the calculation of an unknown side. Which is that unknown side? AC is some unknown side what I am talking about. What is the angle that I am using for calculating this unknown side? Let's say it's the angle at B. Okay, so that angle what you have at B is what I am calling it as your distance angle, which is there at some distance, which is useful for you to find out an unknown existing in that particular network. Okay, two distance angles involve for the calculation of an unknown side. I repeat, two distance angles involve for the calculation of an unknown side. Let's say, for example, if I want to find out the length of your member AC, is it that only one angle you are using? Not exactly. If I am writing down my sine rule, how do I write down? Let's say this is sine of angle at A by its opposite side, that is BC length, which is equal to sine of angle at B by its opposite side, AC length, which is equal to sine of angle at C by its opposite side, that's the length AB. Now what I want to find out, AC length is what I want to find out. Okay, I can make use of this relation, or I can make use of this relation to ultimately find out your AC length. So in the process of finding out that AC length, either by first combination or second combination, how many angles are involved? If I am using the first combination, sine A by BC is equal to sine B by AC. So how many angles are involved? Angle at A is involved, angle at B is involved. So two distance angles are involved in finding out one unknown side. That's what it means. Okay. Namely, angle opposite to the known side and the angle opposite to unknown side. What are those two angles which are getting involved? One angle is opposite to your unknown side, and the other angle is going to be opposite to that of your known side. Okay. So I said angle at A, angle at B, I am going to be making use of. Now, how is this angle at A? It is opposite to that of a known side, BC length. I should be knowing. Without knowing BC length, I cannot go on to find out your AC length. Okay. So angle at A is said to be an angle opposite to that of a known length, and angle at B is said to be an angle opposite to that of an unknown length. So by making use of those two angles, which are called as distance angles, you are trying to find out that so-called unknown measurement, unknown side. So this is all typically what I have talked about. No effect by the remaining angle on the calculation of the unknown side, and that is what is referred to that is what is referred as non-effective angle. So what does it mean? We are using only two angles to find out an unknown side. What about the third angle? Is it of any use for us? It's of no use for finding out that unknown what I am looking at. Okay, the third side is not useful for me. I'm not using that third angle rather. Okay, so that third angle is what is called as non-effective angle, because I am not using that third angle to find out your unknown side. So that that particular angle, what is not used for finding out your unknown side, is what is called as non-effective angle. Okay, so why are we talking all this? We are trying to talk about all this because, understand now, station should be selected such that non-effective angle is quite smaller and the distance angles are large for the accurate computation of the sides. So what does it mean? So earlier when we were trying to talk about your triangle, simple triangle figure, or your quadrilateral, braced quadrilateral figure, or maybe your centered polygon figure, whatever figure we said angles between two lines should not be so small. Why? Because if I am using that angle for finding out any unknown sides, you will have relatively chances of higher error getting involved in your calculation, because smaller angle used for large measurements could give could maximize your error. Though the angle what you have measured, the smaller angle what you have measured, has got small error only in terms of the angular measurement, but when that small angle is used for large measurements, then error gets maximized. That's the reason why whenever you are trying to choose the stations in forming your triangulation network, station should be chosen in such a way that the non-effective angle can be quite smaller, because that angle we are not going to be using. Okay, so that angle can be quite smaller. But however, the other angles, the other distance angles, the other two angles in the triangle should be relatively more for a better accurate calculations that you are when you are trying to find out the lengths of the unknown sides in that particular triangulation network, or a braced quadrilateral network, or a centered polygon network, and so on. Next, strength of figures. Strength in the sense here, not the physical strength. So here the strength is nothing but how better you are trying to represent your figures in the triangulation network with least amount of error in the values what you are going to be computing. That is all what we call it as the strength of the figure. Okay, strength of the figure can be defined as a figure which gives the least error in calculated length of the last line in that particular system due to the shape of the triangles and the computation of the figures. I repeat. So last dimension, whatever you are going to be finding out in that particular triangulation network, if that last dimension, whatever you have measured, last in the sense it will not be the last in your complete, the dimension what you are looking at, let's say for example, that dimension whatever you are trying to calculate, if it has got a least error in the calculated value. Sir, how do I know it has got least error or more error? By mathematical trigonometric functions, you calculate the length of that, which we call it as the computed length. In the original field, you measure the exact length. If the measured length and your calculated length is not varying by large margin, if the error in between those two values what you have measured and calculated is very small, then we say the strength of that particular figure what you have represented in forming the triangulation network, the strength of the figure is relatively high. And when you are representing your triangulation network, the strength of that respective figures, it could be a triangle, simple triangle, or braced quadrilateral, or centered polygon, the strength of those respective figures should be high in getting relatively accurate values when you are calculating, when you are trying to find out the lengths of the unknown sides of that particular triangulation network. It is assumed that all the angles are measured with the same degree of precision. The strength of the figure, whenever you are talking about the strength of the figure, we certainly assume that all the angles, whatever you are measuring in that triangulation figure or in that complete triangulation network, all the angles are relatively measured more accurately to that of the better accuracy. It's not that somewhere you measured it more accurately, somewhere you are measuring it with less accuracy. So everywhere angles measured are relatively with better accuracy, and the baseline, whatever we have measured in the field, is also with higher accuracy. Then your strength of the figure basically depends on certain factors. So what are those certain factors on which your strength of the figure depends on? Means it depends on number of observed angles. Yes, obviously, if you have got more number of observed angles, there is a possibility of either more accuracy or less accuracy. Less accuracy when you are going to have if more errors are made at more number of angular measurements. When do I have higher accuracy? When more accurately you are measuring all those angles existing in that. So number of observed angles or number of observed directions would also play a role in defining the strength of that particular figure. And it also depends on the geometric conditions. Geometric conditions in the sense whether it is a simple triangle, whether it is a braced quadrilateral, or whether it is your centered polygon. We said in the case of a simple triangle, you cannot have alternative routes by which you can measure the same value to understand how accurately you are getting the values. But if it is a braced quadrilateral, if it is a centered polygon, you have other possible ways by which you can find out the same length to compare how my computations, how my calculations are, whether it is correct or whether there is some mistake. Because in one route I'll be using some set of angles, in some other route I'll be using some set of angles to find out that length. If the length is varying for different routes that I have followed, it means that angles somewhere are not correctly measured. That you can compare, that you can understand. Okay. Properties of each triangles in which the size of the distance angles used in computation. Okay, so when you are trying to find out the unknown sides, you are using some distance angles. Okay, so those distance angles, to what accuracy they are measured. The property of that particular each triangle, we said earlier that in the case of your triangulation network, the triangle should be of, for more accurate computation, we said it should be of isosceles triangle with base angle so and so. But however, we said it may not be possible in all cases to have isosceles triangle. It would be suggested to have what is called as your equilateral triangle. So it all totally depends on how your shape of that triangle is chosen, and based on those angles in that particular triangle form, you are trying to find out your unknown sides. So it totally depends on the properties of that particular each triangle that is building your triangulation network would define the strength of that particular figure. Okay, so that another term what I can understand is relative strength of the figure. Relative strength of the figure in the sense relative to one another, what is the strength of that figure is what we are trying to talk about. As I told you, like what is it basically depends on? It depends on what is called as your observed angles or observed directions, number of trigonometric conditions that you are getting involved in the calculations. The more number of angles, more number of computations would result into either more accuracy or more or less accuracy. So it totally depends on how you are calculating, and it also depends on the magnitude of the distances and the angles what you are making use of. Okay, if smaller angle is used for calculating larger distance which is on the opposite side, then amount of error what could relatively accumulate there could be more. So it totally depends on how many number of observed directions are there, how many number of trigonometric conditions that are getting involved in the calculation, and what are the magnitudes of those angles and sides that you are making use of to find out the unknown sides. So depending on all those factors, your relative strength of that particular figure is going to be depending on. Okay, so we'll stop our discussion for today.